Hello, I'm Laura Leong. I wanted to talk you through how I made the base for both of my competition entries for the Lepidium competition, which was Energize My World, run with Fusion Flowers for Danziger. And the focus was on Lepidium, Green Dragon, and my process I always follow is to really analyse the plant material first of all. So in this case, it's got this tremendous, vibrant, luminous yellow-green colour, which needs no selling at all because it's really uplifting and vibrant. The other characteristic is the complexity of the stem and the form and the detail that runs along the whole of the stem, which you can see. When I actually started to cut it down and look at the individual parts, I was really taken with the overall form, and you can see it's very, very delicate and interesting. So I wanted to highlight that particular delicacy. So what I did was I actually just turned it, because it's one of its characteristics is it's very flexible, and it's possible to make it into a circle without actually breaking the stem or creating a kink in the stem. So by carefully turning it into a circle like that, I thought I was onto something where I could potentially really show you the individual character of the stem and the seed head. So I just used a normal, very thinnest available green binding wire just to hold down the end of the stem in one discrete position. And to avoid that becoming very seen in the work, you've just got to minimise the number of times that you bind, so it becomes almost invisible in the work. And a way that you can get around any cut wire ends is to actually use a small piece of sedum on the end of the wire like that to actually cover any wire junctions, and that's just held on with a little bit of cold glue. So I'm able to then combine the elements together by binding them together in various different places and grow the composition dependent on what the base I want to create is. I made a circular base for one work, and for a wedding bouquet more of a teardrop shape. For the teardrop shape, I graduated the size of the circles so that it would gradually taper and become a little bit more varied in its composition. I had to create a base for the Lepidium to sit on, and I did that by taping 6 green wires, 120 wires, and actually just creating this very simple construction by folding them first of all 5 times, then 3 times, and then bending the ends and covering them with a little bit of this very fine chenille wool. I didn't want this to be a dominant characteristic in the work, so it has to be very thin. This is done so that the ends of the wires wouldn't catch on a dress. And then I've used the platform that I've created to cover over the top and fastened over the top, and continue to shape it beyond the edges of the construction so that it's fully supported and I can push my wired materials through there. The other materials that were in the bouquet were a very simple selection. So first of all, I've wired and taped a few stems of jasmine, a few stems of dianthus, a few stitched anthurium leaves, and the geranium leaf, and also a few passiflora flowers. Now these last very well in the context of a bridal bouquet for a day if they're actually sprayed. It's very important though that you remove the inner pollens, so because they could potentially drop on someone's dress. So both of those are thirsty and therefore need a little bit of spraying before you actually use them and after, when the bouquet is assembled. So this was a straightforward process of putting the materials through the framework, and I can just now show you, I've mocked up an example of what it was that I made, and you can see that the very delicate quality of the Lepidium is very highlighted by this kind of embroidery tapestry type of outline, which shows the transparency and the light coming through. It's very, very lightweight for a bride too, and it actually lasted very, very well. I've done this a few times now, and I actually think that it's very practical, and Lepidium actually dries down quite favourably. So I really enjoyed working with Green Dragon, and it offered me lots of possibilities, and I'm sure it will you too.